Hi there, this is Physics, Chapter 1, Physical Quantities and Measurements. Lesson 4, Measuring Lengths. Now in this video, we will explore a little bit more on how we can measure length. But before we do that, let us recall that the SI unit for length is none other than the meters, and the symbol for this unit is the small letter m. Now let's have a look at the types of instruments that can be used to measure length. Essentially, there are four, okay, and these types of the choice of instrument that we use depends very much on the length to be measured and also the accuracy required. In this table, you'll find that there are four common items that we use in the lab for measuring length. The first one is the tape measure. The tape measure is suitable for measuring lengths of up to a few meters. Some tape measures are supplied or can be purchased up to a maximum of 2 meters in length, or even up to 5 or even 10 meters. So it's very suitable for measuring dimension of a room. The next picture, you see a meter rule. As the name suggests, a meter rule is able to measure up to a maximum of 1 meter length. Alright, so this is a useful instrument for us to measure the width or a tabletop, for example. Okay. The third item here is known as the vernier caliper. The vernier caliper itself, it is good to measure lengths up to a few centimeters. So for example, it is suitable to use to measure the thickness of a laptop. Now, the next instrument is the micrometer screw gauge. This is useful for measuring up to lengths of a few millimeters. Okay, so for example, the thickness of a coin. In the next slide, we will discover more about the ranges of which these instruments can be used for measurement and also their accuracy. Now this table shows you the approximate range and accuracy of the four instruments. Okay, for the meter rule, as you can see, it is good for measuring items from 0 to 1 meter range and has an accuracy of 0.1 centimeters. In other words, when we use a meter rule to make measurements in the units centimeter, we can always write down accurate to 1 decimal place of a centimeter. For example, the length of a table can be 56.4 centimeters. So 1 decimal place here, 1 decimal place. For measuring tape, the approximate range as mentioned is from 0 to 10 meters and its accuracy is similar to that of a meter rule. Again, 1 decimal place of a centimeters. Now, for the vernier caliper itself, it is ideal for measuring lengths of between 2 to 10 centimeters. In terms of millimeters, it is good for 20 to 100 millimeters. So, the accuracy of a vernier caliper is 0.01 centimeters. This means that we can actually measure lengths of that which are accurate to 2 decimal place of a centimeter when using a caliper. Comparing between a caliper and a meter rule or a measuring tape, we will find that it is able to give us a more accurate reading. So examples of a vernier caliper reading could be 3.24. So again, take note, there are 2 decimal places here as indicated by the accuracy. Okay. Now, by now you should have an idea that this instrument, the last one on the table, the micrometer screw gauge, okay, it is more accurate compared to the other instruments at the top. Alright, it can actually measure up to an accuracy of 0.001 centimeters. In other words, it can give us reading accurate up to 3 decimal place of a centimeters. So an example of a reading could be 0.752 centimeters. There are 3 decimal places here. Okay. We can also use a micrometer to measure in terms of the unit millimeters. Alright, and if that's the case, the accuracy will be up to a 2 decimal place of a millimeters. So examples of a reading could be 7.52 millimeters. Now, the range of a micrometer, however, is very small. We can actually just use a micrometer to measure lengths of up from 0 to 3 centimeters or 30 millimeters. Now let's have a look at how we can make use of rulers to measure length accurately. Many of us have used it before, but not many of us realize that there are 2 important points to take note of to make sure that the measurements are very accurate. The first is this. We tend to place objects at the edge of a ruler and we start taking the reading at which the object reaches, the far end of the object reaches. Alright, now not many of us realize that due to wear and tear, the edge of the ruler may not necessarily be the 0 centimeter mark. Hence, it is better to place the object as shown in this diagram. Okay, we start measuring from the 1 centimeter mark, and at this particular marking is actually a 2.9 centimeter marking. So what's the actual length of the object? We can calculate this easily by taking 2.9 minus 1, which is the starting point of the object, and that will give us the actual length of this object itself. Alright, so that's the first point to take note of. The second point concerns the placement of our eyes. The placement of these eyes is important. Alright, it is important to take note that we must place our eye perpendicular above the scale, where the object edge are. Alright, by doing so, we can actually tell the marking accurately. Now compare this position of the eyes with that on the diagram on the right hand side. If the eyes are positioned not perpendicular above the scale, this can result in error as shown. Alright, so the starting point instead of being 1 centimeter can be read wrongly as 0.9, while the other end of the object can be read instead of 2.9, read as 3.0 centimeters. So when we subtract these two readings, it will give us a wrong length. Okay, so this particular error that we have seen due to the wrong placement of the eyes is known as parallax error. Alright, so it's important when you are making measurement to avoid parallax errors by placing the eyes directly above the scale. And in general, it is a good idea to take several readings and then calculate the average of these readings. This will give us a more accurate measurement. Right, so some fun fact. Do you know that the diameter of a strand of hair is about 1 times 10 to the power of minus 4 meters? And that the diameter of a hydrogen atom is about 1 times 10 to the power of minus 10 meters. Alright, so that brings us to the very last slide of this lesson itself. Just to summarize, there are 4 items that we can use to measure length: a meter rule, measuring tape, vernier caliper, and micrometer. It is also important to recall that among these 4, the micrometer is able to give the most accurate reading. However, the micrometer itself has a very limited range of length which it can measure. Okay, for micrometer, it can actually measure up to 3 decimal place of a centimeters or 2 decimal place of a millimeter, while a vernier caliper can be used to measure accurate up to 2 decimal place of a centimeter or 1 decimal place of a millimeter. And the last 2 items, for the meter rule and the measuring tape, both of these can give us an accuracy of measurement up to 1 decimal place of a centimeter. Alright, thank you for listening.